Have you ever sat through a meeting that you wish you could get out of? Have you ever been like gnawing at your arms and counting the ceiling tiles? Anything to get out of that? Well, I think we all have. Sitting through really boring, horrible meetings is terrible. I do know. I do know why people conduct those meetings. It's because they don't have a protocol, they didn't prepare, or they believe incorrectly that everything that they're talking about is unbelievably important to everyone that's in the room. And maybe it should be, but the issue is, for human beings, we get distracted, we get busy, we have lives. I know you don't want to hear this, but people have lives outside of you. They have other things going on, and their brains kind of creep off and drift into other areas. But I think I can give you some concrete rules that if you follow, people will want to come to your meetings in the future. That I'm not saying that they're going to love them, because meetings are tough after all, but they will get value out of those meetings, and it'll keep them coming back. You'll feel more organized. You'll feel better. You'll keep the winners, and you'll keep the people that you want to have in those meetings. All too often, we don't think about the really good people, the people that just get the work done. They just do their job. We think all too often about the problem children, and we spend too much of our time giving them energy. And so really, these rules about how to run a great meeting are focused on getting the good people to come back. And sometimes, I hate to say it, you're going to upset the people that destroy meetings, dragons and trolls, and we're going to get into that into a minute. But I have gotten a lot of questions recently about running an effective meeting. And maybe you can send them this video, because, look, all too often people are really not asking for themselves. They're like, how do I talk my boss or my colleague into running a great meeting? Well, I still call it like amnesia of sort, because even you or I could all run bad meetings. So I think these tips can be helpful to all those people. But heck, send them the video, send them this training course. I'm able to pick up a tip or two to make your life a little bit better. The main problems that I hear about, and I'd like to hear your thoughts too. So don't forget, email me with your thoughts as we continue to build out course content, is that people talk about meetings running long. They lack focus. The meeting could have been done in half the time, but certain participants won't keep their mouth shut. People just, even that, maybe it's the person running the meeting, maybe it's others, just, they don't really have questions. They have really long comments, and then they say, do you agree? Well, that's not a question. That's a comment to show me how smart you are. But it stretches meetings out, and it can kind of drive us all crazy. And I guess the main point is that too many meetings can be really a waste of time. But we have to have meetings. We have to bring people into groups and come up with consensus on how to move forward on so many things. So meetings are a necessary, I don't want to say evil, but they're necessary. Let's run them better. So let's talk about one of the biggest pet peeves that I have, and I bet you have. It's catching up late arrivals. You've done it. You started your meeting. You said you're going to have the PTA association meeting or the teachers meeting or whatever the type of meeting is at let's say 3 p.m. or it starts at 3 p.m. on the dot, and we're going to start. And you're starting to go through your agenda. You planned. You're ready to go. The participants are there. They got their notes. Everybody's ready to go. And somebody walks in late. It's inevitable. I get it. Life happens. But the door opens up, and they walk in, and then sure enough, what does the speaker do? Oh, you're only about 10 minutes behind. Let me catch you up. Don't do that. Don't catch up late arrivals. Rule number 1, value the time of the participants that were there on time. All these other people were there on time. One person's late. And apparently what you're showing is there's no reason to ever show up early to one of your meetings. So everyone should show up late, because it's going to start over anyway. Why do I need to be there on time? I don't want to listen to the start twice, but way too often, because we're trying to be polite to that one person that showed up late, we're not polite to everybody else that was there on time. And people see that, and they know that. And by the way, the person that showed up late typically doesn't want to be brought up to speed. They know they're late. I mean, they already are a little antsy. They're already embarrassed. They want to creep in behind the scenes and just kind of slip in, sit in the back, and they'll get caught up. They'll get caught up. Now I know you get some people at the end of the Q&A, and what they're going to say is they're going to go, I know I was late, and you may have already answered this. And then they put their question out. And you have a right, nay, you have a duty to say, we did cover at that beginning. If we did cover that in the beginning, if you wait until after everyone else is left, I'm going to answer that question for you. You're still being polite to them. You're still going to answer their question. But what you're showing is the 80, 90, 95% of people that are there on time, you value them. You value them. You value them. You value their time. And if you come back to my meeting next time, I'm going to continue to value your time and not repeat things for people that were there late. Now, once again, I'm not blaming. Well, maybe I am a little bit. I'm an old soldier after all. Yeah, I mean, get there on time, right? But things happen. You're under no obligation to repeat yourself. So I'm gonna say it again. The rule is value the time of the participants that are there early, especially those that you want to keep coming back, because those are typically very valuable people. The ones that actually participate, they give great advice. They actually have deliverables and items they're supposed to accomplish, and they do. So ensure you're not wasting their time, and that's really about starting on time. Now, look, somebody comes in late. It's a great protocol. Say, hey, I know you're late. Anybody that shows up a little late, I will catch you up at the end of the meeting. And then just keep going. Just keep going. You're letting them know you're going to take care of them too. You're sorry they had a little traffic jam. But when the meeting is over, they can stay. And you're the only one wasting your time twice, not everybody. So let's stick with this. Start a meeting on time and do not repeat for latecomers. Nobody wants you to do that. All right. The second big topic still is in that same vein of not caring about people's time. Time is the one commodity we can't replace. And so you really, if you really want to run great meetings, you've got to be diligent about your time and their time. And so the first one is start on time. Don't repeat yourself. The second one is meetings that run long. I went to I'm a lawyer. I got to go to continuing legal education courses every year. And it's about, like, I know I'm supposed to really enjoy the continuing legal education, and I'm supposed to, really bask in learning some new piece of law. But let's be real for a minute. Continuing education hours can be a grind. They're not always the topics that you want, and it's really about the credit. You need 15 or 18 hours, or, you want to get those 15 to 18 hours in. But I'll tell you what, if you're supposed to get 15 hours in, you don't want to get 15 and a half hours in. I mean, I don't want to go overboard here. I want to get it done and get out. And I was at a continuing legal education, and there was a speaker, and it was on health law. I'm not in health law, but I thought I would go because the speaker was pretty cute, and I could sit there in the front row and check her out a little bit and write some notes and then boogie, right? And now listen to the whole story before you start getting upset. Just listen to the whole story before you get upset. So it's an hour-long credit. It was 1 hour long credit, and the speaker, it was 5 minutes to 5, and we started at 4, over at 5, and I'm kind of packing up and I'm getting ready to boogie. And she looks at me at 5:03 because I'm starting to get really antsy. I don't want to be rude and get up and leave. And she looks at me and she goes, now, Brian, I am almost done. I've got a few other things to cover, so just hold on. I said, well, look, I got to leave to go pick up our kid, honey. It was my wife, and I'm the one that was on kid pickup duty. And she wouldn't hush up. I know that she was enraptured by health law. She loves it. She eats it up. She would talk about health law all day long. I don't care. I want my hour credit. I want to boogie. I want to leave. And I'm letting you know, people don't want your meetings to run long. They don't want your meetings to run long. And somebody out there is saying, but the topic is that important, Brian. The topic is that good. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's never that good. Sometimes it can be kind of that good, but the issue is if you want good people to come back, you want busy people to come to your meetings, the way to push those people out, the way to get people to get things done is to start late, run long, and not value their time. So you've got to end a meeting when you say you're going to end a meeting. And I will be in mid-course and I'll be like, guys, I want you to come back next time. We said we were going to be done at 5. It is 4:59. We're done. If anyone wants to stay longer, I'll wait a minute, let anyone get up that needs to boogie, and we can kind of keep going and do a little Q&A and give some additional context. But if you've got to leave, I totally get that. I want you to come back next time. A lot of people will give you those extra 10 or 15 minutes, but you've gotten permission from them, right? If you say a meeting is going to be 4 to 5 and you run long, you didn't get the permission. But if you stop and you get permission, you give them a graceful way to exit. Don't just do these things where people say, now, is it okay with everybody if I keep going, I only have 10 more minutes? Nobody wants to stand up and say, I don't want you to do that. They're trying to be polite and they're scraping the wood. And so you got to give them, say, I'm going to hush up for like 60 seconds. Get up, leave, go ahead and walk out. No big deal. And give them that ability to boogie, right? And then they're going to come back. So there you go. Oh, the last point about running long is it's oftentimes the subject matter is too complex or the problem has not been solved, or if it's a planning meeting, you haven't finished planning, schedule another meeting. I mean, I still want you to end on time. You've got to continue to value the time of the participants, especially the ones that are busy, because you want busy people because busy people get things done. So just remember, you can always get permission, allow people to leave to run a little bit over. You can set a follow-up meeting, or you could, do the follow-up by email or something like that. So those are all pretty good choices. So the second rule was to value the time of the participants. And so the next big issue, the next big topic is I need you to control the dragons. So there are people in every meeting, people in every single meeting that want to come in and burn every good idea down. I mean, no matter what you suggest, oh, that won't work. They're dream killers. They're dream killers is what they are. That won't work. But you've noticed they never have a suggestion about how to make it happen. Or they will suggest a million things that need to be done, but they don't want to volunteer their time. They don't want to participate in the solution. So they love to come in, burn everything down, and then when it's time to do the work, they fly away. And I've written about dragons quite a bit. Is a term actually coined by a political guy I know, because he got sick of going to community meetings and just hearing the same person complain. And I was running a large community meeting once, and there must have been 100, 150 people. If the press called, I'd say 300, but about 100, 150 people consistently. And the issue is, over a couple months, we were dealing with some big community issue. The good people I noticed stopped coming. Like the ones that would really work, they'd call me later and go, tell me what you want to do. Tell me how you want to accomplish this. I just can't sit through those meetings anymore. And I was a young guy, and I got to thinking about it. There was a man, and he'd sit in the back. I mean, the 10th, 12th row, the back of the bleachers kind of guy. And he'd raise his hand. Every single meeting. And when he got called in, Jim, his name was Jim. And Jim, I would say, yes, sir, Jim, can I help you? And then pretty soon it got to be, Jim, what is it now? And you could hear this audible sigh go across the room where everybody was they just knew what was coming. And it just, And so he'd stand up and he would lecture us on everything we were doing wrong and what we thought we need to be doing. He loved, you guys should have a committee to handle this, and the committee should show up, and the committee should be run like this. And mind you, we were all volunteers, right? We were all there trying to help our community for free. We weren't getting paid. He certainly wasn't paying us. And one time, by accident, it was not a grand plan, some grand strategy on my part, I said, Jim, would you come down and stand right here at the right? I was really mad is what I was. I said, will you come and would you stand down here on the right side for us and after the meeting? And he goes, well, why would I do that? I go, because we'll get everyone who wants to help you lead that and do that task that you're talking about, run that committee. They can come meet with you downstage after the meeting, and you can put it together and you can make it happen. It'll be awesome. So they can meet you down here. And he said, I kid you not. He said, I don't have time for that. And I said, well, I don't either. So if you don't want to be a part, boy, I was angry. I said, if you don't want to be a part of the solution, then get the hell out. Get out of here. Now, I got a standing ovation. And he left never to come back. Now, I am not suggesting. When I said those words, I was like, I can't believe I did it. He's a volunteer. He cares enough about his community to show up, and I just slammed him in front of everyone. I was young and I was brash. I shouldn't have done it. I got a standing ovation. So what I learned was not to do that. But what I learned is there are all these good people in the audience that cannot stand the dragons. They can't stand those people, but they're too polite to say anything. So what do? They just don't come back. And so you, as the leader of your meeting, if you do not control those dragons, if you don't stop them, you'll never hear about it. But all your good people will leave, and the only people left will be the dragons. And there's another type of person, we call it like the trolls, right? They're always just trying to needle and stuff like that. You see about them online. But I worry more about these dragons because that audible that goes across the room, good people just won't show up anymore. And so what's going to happen is, I know you want to be polite. I know you want to be sweet. I know you don't want to slam anybody. I don't want you to do any of those things. But be sweet, be polite to the good people that are working, that are dealing with the issue, that are there to help you with whatever the meeting's about, right? And if you don't control those dragons, no one else will, and everyone will leave. And I need you to continue to remind yourself of that, because if these dragons go left unchecked, they will burn everybody down. And so please focus on the good apples. There's an old axiom in the business world, and I have to remind myself about this all the time, is that we focus most of our attention on problem people. We give them love, we give them coaching, we give them training, we work on it. You got a classroom full of students. I mean, you think about the student that takes up most of your time, and it's not the best student all the time. Often it's the troublemaker. Often it's the one that has, problems and outbursts and causes chaos. And look, they need your attention too, but don't neglect the good ones. Don't neglect the quiet children, the people quiet in the meeting that are just getting it done. I need you to focus on the good apples, not just the bad apples in this scenario. And so maybe I'll buy little dragons and I'll and send them out to you guys if you want, but you got to control those dragons. And so rule number 3 is value the time of your participants, especially if you want them to come back. Now, I hope I've made my point about this, because if you've noticed, I've given you 3 rules and they're all the same. They're all the same. Like I'm really trying to have impact on you right now, which is, if you run a meeting where you value the time of your participants, I mean all of them, not just the dragons, not just the people that come in late. You don't run long. If you value their time and you actually appreciate their time, they will come back and you will run a better meeting. Now, I do have some tips to help you run like a first-class meeting and really value their time. So let's start to get into that too, all right? Okay, so really, how to follow the rule, because there's only one, but I still want you to think about it as 3 rules. Value the time of your people, of your participants. Value your own time too, by the way. So the first thing that you need to know in order to really run a tight meeting is you've got to know what the goal is. All too often, I will ask people, what is the objective of this meeting? What's the purpose? Well, we have a weekly meeting, Brian, to this, that we have to meet weekly. Well, why? Why do you have to meet weekly? Why am I here? And they don't know. It's just become a repetitive task. It just becomes a reoccurring thing, but there's no unique purpose behind it. Now, I'm not suggesting that like having weekly planning meetings is a good thing. Just know what you're planning. And I see this with homeowner associations. I see this with PTA, PTO groups, parent-teacher organizations, where they just have this reoccurring monthly meeting and they don't have anything to talk about. So people like, why am I showing up? There's no goal. There's no objective. I mean, I can get coffee and a donut without coming, here in the rain and listen to people just give me, update that you could have sent me via email. I may have not read the email, but what is the intent? And if there's no goal, there's no intent, there's no purpose to the meeting, this is going to sound radical. This is going to sound like a crazy idea. Don't have the meeting. Just cancel it. And I've yet to ever meet a person that's upset because a meeting got canceled. I mean, you want to be a hero? Cancel a meeting that has no point. I mean, woo, people will love you and they will know that you only have meetings that have purpose. They will know that you only have meeting that has a goal attached to it. And so kudos to you for knowing that I just don't have any agenda item today. So it is good that once you know what your goal is, your part B here of tactical ways to run a tight meeting is think about the type of meeting you want to run. And I Googled this and binged it and dinged it, and there are so many different types of meetings, but really they fall down into about 7 different types, at least the way I see it. The first type is decision-making meetings. Some people call them problem-solving meetings, but it basically means you're getting a group of people together to solve something, to solve a problem or to make a decision. And that's awesome. That's awesome. I would say this, it needs to be limited in size. If you're talking about big community meetings or big organizations, it's really hard to make a decision in those. You'll have to break them down into smaller groups and have them make the decisions in little pods. But there's so much research behind this. But 8 to 10 people, really 8 is this magical number. You can stretch it to 9, 10. 8's a magical number to help make a decision. If it's 3 people, you might not hear enough opinions. But if there's 10, 11, 12, a lot of people just kind of hide in the room and don't really participate. And so we go back to our main rule, which is to value everyone's time. When there's 14 or 15 people in there, I mean, a third of them, a quarter of them aren't contributing. Maybe they're introverts and they don't want to speak up in a large group. Maybe they use it as an excuse not to participate. And by the way, sometimes the best ideas come from the quietest people. So when you get a decision-making meeting that is too big in size, you're starting to waste a lot of people's time. So you got to scale that down and really get the main people that will help drive that decision. And then you can have another type of meeting, which is the update or check-in meetings to let everyone know what the decision is. Or if it's a quick decision, the group coming together can come up with 2 or 3 options, and you can just run a survey or an email to get everyone else's take on those 2 or 3 options, right? So you're not wasting 15 or 20 people in a decision problem solving meeting. So that's one type of meeting. Team building meetings. Team building is awesome. Don't do enough of it. Always should do more. But it's not like this. A team building that's the goal, right? So if your goal is team building, then go do team building. Don't try to make complex decisions. Don't do brainstorming one-on-one. Now, you can have decision meetings, problem-solving meetings in a team building day or a team building retreat, but if it's just a team building meeting, just do some pump-up stuff. But I don't know why I'm talking about donuts so much, but bring in some donuts or pizza or food. Have fun, reward positive things. It's always great to praise in public. So team building is about praising people, telling those that have done a great job what they've done, and it's about building team cohesion. So do that in a fun, light atmosphere. Don't do it in a conference room. Do it out on the floor. Do it outside. Do it someplace that's novel, that breaks it up. And there's actually I don't think I'm gonna get into this particular session boring you with the science about locations for meetings, but let's kind of break that down a little easier. If you want a decision-making meeting, having a room set up with white walls or paper to write notes, or TVs to get research up so you can kind of really get into the subject matter is really helpful. In a team building meeting, someplace that's more creative, that's outside, that's a little bit looser, and less formal, like not around their desk, helps to kind of break that connection mentally. So you want to get away from the office sometimes for those team building meetings, even if it's just, going out to a football field or a track and walking around or sitting outside under a tree. We talked before, the team building meetings are about, rewarding positive behavior. There are also things called correction meetings, discipline meetings. Those should always be done in private, one-on-one, or with a witness, so to speak. And nowadays, it might be good to have a witness there, to have 2 people, but you don't want to feel like it's tag teaming. You don't want to have 4 people getting onto one person. That's a little overwhelming. And if the goal is discipline or course correction, you still got to do it in an open atmosphere, and don't put a table in between you. I know it feels weird, right? But when you have wood, I've got a really big table right here. If I put a person on the other side of it, they already feel like we're separated. And how am I going to help, course correct them, if we feel separated in time and space? So, get away from the wood, sit in a room where you can see each other, or do it standing. But remember, you praise in public and you discipline in private, right? So, if your goal is discipline, one-on-one meetings are really good. And of course, another type of meeting is just good old-fashioned one-on-one meetings, because it's quick and it doesn't resolve a lot of, it doesn't drag a lot of people in. Another type of meeting, and I'm already kind of bored going through these, but I do want to hit brainstorming meetings. The toughest thing about brainstorming meetings is you've heard the phrase, they're all good ideas. They're all good ideas. And it's true. You cannot start to shut people down when you're brainstorming or their creative ideas stop. And if you get people that aren't used to being in a problem-solving, brainstorming mood, sometimes having them write down their ideas. I want everyone to come to this meeting with 3 innovative ideas, 2 to 5 innovative ideas. And we're going to throw them up on the wall. We're not going to rank them. We're not going to judge them right now. We're not going to talk about if they're good or bad. We're just going to get them up on, and you've got to give a lot of praise. You got to really tell people how awesome it is, and you want to keep going around. And breaking people up into groups of 2 and 3 and really having them know that another group of 2 or 3 are really going to brainstorm issues too is a real creative way to get the juices flowing. And we have an entire course on gameology and role-playing. And I think brainstorming and decision-making meetings, gameology is a really awesome technique to really flourish a lot of great ideas up. So you might want to check out the gameology course that we have, and that's about role-playing and using games as ways to get people to speak up and realize that it's a safe space to give their opinions and not to be judged. So, look, eventually you've got to take those brainstorming ideas and kind of chop them up and drift into the last type of meeting I'm going to talk about, which is planning meetings. You take all those brainstorms, you take which one is doable with the resources you have, because, brainstorming is great, but eventually you got to say, well, we only have this many hours and we have this big a budget. So all the ideas were great, but this is the one that's the most likely to occur with the current resources we have. And then you do a good old-fashioned planning meeting. And I don't know if it's, planning out for 3 weeks or 3 months, but that's kind of how that transition goes. In a planning meeting, you need planning tools, all right? I'm not going to get into that today, but you really have to go in there with the idea of a calendar, a timeline, deliverables, deadlines, and things like that. But you guys know a lot of that, and I'll probably do an extra. I don't have a course on that one yet, but that's probably pretty needed. So, couple more topics to hit with you today is standing meetings. Now, you can use a standing meeting for any of these. It can be a decision meeting. It can be a team building exercise. It can be an update, a correction. But the idea for a standing meeting, because remember our theme, the theme for this course is value your participants' time, value their time. Standing meeting, pretty good. I mean, you've gone to those meetings. They're like, oh, we're going to meet at 8. Well, we better get donuts and coffee. So 8 o'clock, everybody kind of starts to move into the meeting, and then they get their little coffee, and they get I'm still talking about donuts. They get their little breakfast snack, and then they sit down. The meeting starts at 8:10, 8:15, and then, you're kind of in a relaxed atmosphere. You have, let's have a lunch meeting. Well, is it a meeting or is it lunch? Well, typically it can be both, but standing meetings are going to ensure that if it's a small, concrete topic, it runs faster. Because if people are standing and you don't let them sit down and get all comfortable and all laid back in their chair, they're going to be more prone to be available, and they know that it's quick. They know a standing meeting is going to last 5 to 8 minutes, 10 minutes, and then you're going to be out the door. So I need to be here. I need to be present. I need to be where? And then I get to go. And that's awesome, because they're going to be like, I love her standing meetings, because we just get right to the theme. There's no formal agenda. We don't have to go through all the small talk. I've got other things to do today. And so standing meetings for any of these different topics, fast and quick. And it also gets you to watch the coffee and food, which at times, as much as I'm a big fan of coffee and donuts, is it stretches it out too much. It stretches the meetings to be too long, and you have a lot of drivel and waste of time. So just think if any of those meetings, you could just run a standing meeting instead. For every single meeting, if you want to run a tight meeting and you really care about people's time, you'll have an agenda. Now, I didn't say it doesn't have to be a formal agenda. It doesn't have to be on a sheet of paper. I mean, I love to just write quick agendas on something like this, which is basically, what's my goal? Number one is, what's my goal? What do I want to accomplish? And then what are the 2 or 3 things, like the main subject matter, that I need to get through in order to help us reach that goal? So let's talk about hiring a new team member or something. And, well, the goal is go or no go. And then there's a few buckets underneath that. Okay, well, we have to decide exactly what their duties are. I mean, I know we should have decided that before we started interviewing, but all too often you meet somebody, maybe they have a little bit different skill set and you can find a different seat for them. But you should, know, let's clarify their duties and responsibilities. Let's talk about their pay, and let's talk about if they're a good fit. Is it a go, no go, and what other information do we need? So in order to make that decision, and it's still just 3 points, but it compartmentalizes. It creates a little box for us to keep moving. And it's really important because if you have 3 issues and you have 30 minutes, I would go about 5 minutes, letting people know why you're there, 5 minutes on each one of those buckets. So that's 5, 10, 15, there's 20. And then 10 minutes discussion to make a decision. And you could kind of gauge your time according to what you want to cover. And it is totally polite and totally cool to say, hey guys, I've got an agenda today. I've got 5 things I need to get through. I value your time. I value your time. So I'd like permission to, sometimes I'm going to have to kind of shut it down to move on so that each one of these topics that I have is just as important as the other. So I'm going to run through them pretty quickly. And I'm going to have to apologize to anyone if we don't take more time on it. But all we've got is 30 minutes. All we've got is an hour today. And I need to get through this, and I want to give you the best information possible. So if I can get permission from you to kind of cut the conversation short so we can get to that goal at the end. And so I like to book in my goals. Here's my goal. I need permission to run a tight meeting. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then at the end, this was our goal. Did we achieve it? Right? And that's a nice bookend. It's organized, but having an agenda or at least an outline of where you want to go will really make sure that that you get to your goal in time and you give them all the information necessary. And so they say that proper planning prevents poor performance. And there's another thing. I think it was Patton. It might have been some other military journals too, but they say the act of the plan itself means nothing, but the act of planning is everything. And so you just planning, even for a short meeting, will make you be a rock star. It'll make you stay on track. It'll get you to stop. It'll give you permission to kind of shut the dragons down too, because you'll say, hey, I know where you want to go, but this meeting is about, getting this new hire in. And so we can't really get into that topic today, but we can schedule another meeting if you'd like. And one of the partners here, Paige, came up with she loves this phrase, which we're going to put that in the parking lot. We're going to put that in the parking lot. That's an interesting topic. I'll put it up here and she'd write it down on the board. So the person feels like they're going to get back to it. And maybe she has a follow-up meeting and they get to it, but at least it doesn't what's the word I'm looking for, guys? At least it doesn't destroy the meeting that you're in. It keeps you on track. So agenda, notes, and compartmentalizing the subject matter is going to be really critical for running that type ship. And I can't say enough about how just spending 10 minutes before a meeting will bring a lot of value. There's another rule out there. I know a lot of rules that really great people that run great meetings. For every 1 hour of meeting, they will have an hour of prep and an hour of post, which means they take their notes, they follow up for an hour, they send emails, they get the assignments rolled out. So if it's an hour-long meeting, they predict 3 hours of their time being committed to it. And I think that's pretty fair. Sometimes you can't quite make all that happen, but please do some planning and you'll run a tighter ship. And so the last 2 points to make sure that you're valuing everyone's time is really what I just talked about, which is if there are assignments, have deadlines, have people repeat it back, have people send you their notes with their understanding of what the topics are, or email out what you believed, follow up with an email that says, this is my understanding of the event, this is my understanding of the meeting and the deliverables and who's doing what. If this is not your understanding, let me know. And put, that really weird word that nobody pays attention to, deadlines. But you need to make the assignments concrete and unambiguous, and you need to have deadlines. So we've covered quite a bit today about how to run really great meetings. And just to my goal, once again, I knew what my goal was. My goal was to have you run awesome meetings. And the first rule is to value their time. If you value their time, all the rest of this stuff will work out. You'll come up with all kinds of innovative ways to get people in and out quickly. You won't trifle with silliness. You won't deal with the dragons and the trolls because you're valuing everyone's time. So you won't have time to deal with that. It'll just kind of work itself out. You won't run a meeting too long because you value their time. So if you keep that theme alive, that you're really going to value their time, everything else will take place. So dead time, bad. Not having clarity on what you want, bad. Just don't have the meeting. So I really hope you got some value out of this. If you have questions, as always, I love to get the emails. I love to get the follow-up questions. We get to as many as we can, and we'll continue to do that and put up more courses around the topics that we see the most need. So I appreciate it, and because I value your time, I'm going to shut up.